Welcome to Dominate Your Day podcast. This is the podcast that adds value to leaders who want to make a difference in the workplace. We believe each person is unique and has a purpose they can live out every day and make an impact in the world. Here at Dominate Your Day podcast, we hear stories from leaders who have used their unique talents to transform themselves and their companies from the inside out.
All right, I'm excited to introduce everyone today to Regina Huber, who is actually in France today at over 100-degree weather. I'm here in Texas and it's over 100-degree weather, so we were both commenting on that. So welcome to the show, Regina.
Thank you so much, Dana, for having me. It's such a delight to be here with you. And yes, we're going to
Yes,
sweat it through.
we're gonna sweat it through the last days of August, right? So it sounds like, Regina, you and I have a passion for leadership. We have a passion for helping other women. We have a passion for helping people transform themselves from the inside out. Tell us a little bit about your journey. You were at Boston Consulting, and then you've done a myriad of things in a lot of different countries. So, share your story with the audience and how you got into what you're doing today.
Yeah, so I started out with the Boston Consulting Group in Munich. I grew up in a tiny little village, but I moved to Munich when I was 19. And then, I started with them. A colleague of mine said, I was wanting to move abroad actually with the Boston Consulting Group right from the start, but it didn't work out right away. And then one day, a colleague said to me, one of the consultants actually said to me, well, there is a position open in Madrid, Spain. And I said, well, I don't speak Spanish. He said, well, you can learn that. But back then it was like either you learned languages at school. That was a mindset a little bit, or you
Mm.
couldn't learn them so quickly, but I could, as it turned out. So I studied Spanish real quick and I took some lessons and then I moved to Spain just a few months later. And that was at the age of 26. And, it turned out that only 10 months later, I was offered a leadership position in the Madrid office. And later, I helped them also open the offices in Lisbon, Portugal. I also had the pleasure to learn Portuguese and later in Brazil as well. So, this
Wait,
leadership
wait.
position, yeah,
How many languages do you speak?
I would say 5.5. So I'm
Oh
right
my
now getting
gosh!
back into French here, but
Wow,
but it's more
that's
the other
amazing.
languages that I
That's
have practiced,
amazing.
yeah, over the years.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good lesson. And you said you learned it really quick. Well, you must
Yeah.
have a gift of languages to be able to do that. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I did put in the effort as well. So I studied at night. I was reading newspapers, figuring out vocabulary, and then just also taking some lessons. But I had already studied French at school, so Spanish has the same roots at least. So
Hmm.
it wasn't really like a completely new language because I'd also studied Latin at school. So that certainly helped.
Wow. So here
Mhm.
you are. You're in Spain,
Spain.
and you're leading first time leader. And then how did you get to the next level of where you went the next after that?
Yeah, so I stayed in Spain actually for 7 years. The plan initially was 1 year, but then things came differently. And from
Hmm.
there, while I was in Spain, I was traveling a lot to Portugal, as I was now also in charge of that office as well. And later on, the Boston Consulting Group was starting to move more into Latin America. So we had a lot of consultants um, from that region actually in the Madrid office. And turned out that there was an opportunity to help them open the office in Sao Paulo, Brazil, because I spoke Portuguese, although the European Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese are quite different. They even sound like different languages, but
Mm.
it certainly helped.
Yeah.
And that's how I got to Brazil the first time. Later on, I did move back to Munich for a little bit, and I took on a European role for the Boston Consulting Group. I stayed again, not actually that long because I wanted to now leave. I had an offer to be a um, an external consultant for one of the alums who had
Mm,
founded a business in Argentina. So I went there and helped them with trainings, with internal communication topics, etc. That's when I left BCG actually, but later I was hired back by BCG by the San Francisco office this time because Argentina back then went into a financial crisis and of course, a lot of
mm,
people emigrated actually, and the company that I was working with could not pay for my services anymore. They had to let a lot of people go. So that's how
mm.
I came back to the Boston Consulting Group again. I stayed there for 3.5 years, and then I decided it was time to just take a different risk and start my own business. And I went back to Argentina. I opened a bed and breakfast. From there, then 3.5 years later, again, I moved to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil again, but different city. I also have my own business there. And from there, 3.5 years later, to New York City. That was in 2012. And that's when I just decided to start a completely new chapter with all that eclectic experience that I had gathered in all those different roles and situations in these different countries. So this is, I think, how uh, I have created this very holistic approach in this transformational leadership coaching business because I brought everything together that is me, that is my unique experience. You know that, Dana, we might
Mhm.
have the same title as coaches, but we all do it in our own way.
Right.
And this is how it all came together basically. I wanted to do something meaningful with all this experience that I had gathered, and some of it might at first sight look a little bit like it's not relevant, but it actually became very relevant because sometimes, I had to deal, for example, with corrupt authorities as a business owner and things like that. So I gained a lot of resilience. I also had an experience in Brazil with a fraudulent business partner, which cost me not just my business back then, but also my self-esteem at the time,
Mm,
which then helped me build it back, and
mhm,
really rebuild my self-esteem and my confidence from below zero. And when people have confidence issues, and a lot of people do, and especially women, that because you work
mhm.
with women, right? They want to
Yes.
sometimes raise their confidence level. Then I can certainly help them do that because I know I did it for myself, right?
So talk to me about you've you come out of Boston Consulting. You've had all
Mhm.
these experiences. You've traveled all over, and you've amazing that you're able to speak all the languages. And you went through some ups and downs. It sounds like with
Mhm.
businesses closing, with Argentina, with just fraudulent practices that you witnesses. And so, how did this all come into this purpose that you have now? What is this purpose that you feel like you've been created to do right now at this time in your life as you're serving other leaders?
First of all, I believe that everything I do is in the service of freedom.
Mm,
Now, whatever my clients come for to me, whether it's to reach their next career goal, to get a promotion, a raise, to improve their leadership skills, to navigate through their team conversations more smoothly, or whatever it is, everybody has different needs. And sometimes it's, of
mhm,
course, a combination of all of the above. But whatever it is, I always also try to give them a piece of freedom. For some people,
mm,
it's more financial freedom. For some, it's more emotional freedom or freedom from something like freedom from
mhm,
stress, right? Or
mhm,
the freedom to show up authentically as a leader, because authenticity is so important for leadership. Because it can make us more sustainably effective, and all leadership, I believe, starts with self leadership, right? And
right.
that's what then helps us be more authentic. But also I help people, of course, to show their brilliance. I like to call it know, own, and show your brilliance, so that you can then use it to your advantage and that of your team as well. And you can serve your own career but also others better.
So let's talk about that. How do you help them find their brilliance?
Yes, I have created a couple of frameworks. One is the powerful leadership transformation. It's a framework for self leadership to start with, but then once you master it, you can certainly also pass it on to your team in two ways, really, through who you are now. It's not that you become a different person, of course. That's not the intention, but you now have transformed into the best version of yourself, that version that you already were, but now you can show it better and you can be more effective as a leader. And then this way, you already transmit something automatically to your team, but also, of course, when you understand what the powerful leadership transformation consists of, you can do it proactively as well. You can teach your team certain techniques, certain principles, certain concepts, right? So it's
Mm,
very
yeah.
practically focused, and it is built on four pillars. The first one is a self-empowering mindset and heart set. The second is
Mm,
distinctive uniqueness, and this is all about your unique brilliance, but also about the other side of the coin, our areas for improvement or opportunities for growth, right? The third
hmm.
pillar is a body and energy conscious presence, and then the fourth is inspired and effective action, which is really more a consequence, so to speak, of the other three. And when you so I give my clients very simple exercises to start out with to really think about what talents and skills they have, and then which among those make them unique, and how do they fit together into that unique package that we all are.
Mhm,
That's what I call distinctive uniqueness. And then we, of
mm,
course, also look at areas where we need to improve some skills, like leadership skills, for example, right? Or communication skills.
sure. And when you talk about the distinctive uniqueness, one of the things that we use is Clifton Strengths, which is Strengths Finder.
Mhm.
Do you have tools like that you use, or do you kind of just use your own proprietary systems as you're helping them find their uniqueness?
I've done both. Sometimes we just start with very simple exercises. I also have done sometimes some of those tests. I even also have found that the color Q test, I don't know if you've heard of that. It's
Hmm.
a very
I have,
simple
yeah.
one. There are books about that, right? That is can give people a lot of insights, even also about the people who they work with,
Hmm.
because I have found that a lot of my clients feel intimidated by other personality types. For example,
Mm,
a lot of people in leadership oftentimes have to be people who have to be big picture people. They don't always have
hmm.
patience for a lot of detail when they listen, for example. And when we understand better where other people came from with their personalities. And I think once we understand the personality type of the color Q for ourselves, that's relatively easy to at least grasp the gist of other
Hmm.
people's personality types. That's when I think it makes it a bit easier to also navigate successfully through those conversations with these people.
Yeah, and I think it's finding whether it's something like the color Q or
Mhm.
Clifton Strengths, something that people can see where they can find their uniqueness. I think we all know from being, you've been at Boston Consulting, you've been in
Mhm.
the corporate world, I've been in the corporate world, and I think there's this old habit of walking around with a kind of a narrative about who you think you are, and being able to just unwrap and find your uniqueness, I think is really powerful. So that's great that you start with that.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the mindset and heart set and how that comes into this pillar.
Yes, initially it was only the self empowering mindset, but I have found that when we listen to our heart, sometimes we make the best decisions, and we
Mm,
oftentimes in business really neglect our intuition and our intuitive power. We rely a lot on what we sometimes call facts, and oftentimes it's not even a fact. It's just really something, we think is a fact, but
yes.
sometimes it's really we we can make the best decisions, I believe, when we have both. We do our due diligence, and then we also use our intuition, because intuition has been given to us for a reason. Yes.
Right.
And then a lot of people, of course, you might have heard that too, Diana, talk about heart coherence. So when the heart and the mind are in coherence, that's when we are at our best. When they work together, right? They are just better together. When they are in co-creation, you will be able
Mhm.
to use the power of both, that intellectual power of the mind, or the head brain, in a way, although the mind is in all our body, of course, but let's
Mm.
just call it head brain for now, and the and
Mhm.
the and the that specific wisdom that is unique to you, that you have gathered and stored in your heart. And also, I believe courage, comes from the
Mhm.
heart as well. I mean, there's a lot of research nowadays around the heart and its power.
I love that. I love that term, heart coherence. That's
Hmm.
that's pretty powerful, and I think you're seeing more about heart at work. Um, and you talk in your content about the humanistic part of work. Tell us about that and what that means to you, and how to make work more human. Is that part of this heart work that you're talking about?
Also, yes, and the heart is actually also a component. In this case, I call them puzzle pieces, 4 puzzle pieces of my new paradigm leadership framework as well. But humanizing the workplace is a concept that I talk about a lot. I've even also done a webinar series with 2 collaboration partners in Zambia and in Zimbabwe, where we
Awesome.
talked about humanizing the workplace. We had guest speakers on as well, in the areas of human resources, for example, leadership positions. So we had a really beautiful array of people, and the listeners and the participants in the webinars, they were very, very intrigued and excited about this topic, and they participated a lot themselves, so we had some wonderful conversations there. For me, it's really about making the workplace more humane, really putting people in the center of our attention, because I believe that humans are the heart of any organization, right? And we really respect
Mhm.
each individual with their differentness, with their unique brilliance, but also their unique needs, their desires, their aspirations, etc., their challenges. Yes. And
Mhm.
for me, also, I believe respect has many faces. Respect is
Mm.
such a critical word to me, and it also has to do with being transparent in your communication as a leader, and with building trust and all of that. And this heart component actually has a double meaning in my new paradigm leadership framework, where it's about people being at the heart, or the heart, we could even say, of any organization. And on the other hand, it's also about this fact that people connect through the heart. Our heart has this
Mhm.
very strong electromagnetic field that it emanates, and this is how we connect with other people and also with the world around us. So that's why I've made it one of the 4 puzzle pieces of this new paradigm leadership, with if you allow me to just mention the other ones, with the other ones
Absolutely. Yeah.
being mind again, because the mind has to be there. This time I didn't call it self-empowering mindset, but I call it the mind, because it impacts all you do. It determines your vision, your drive. It determines what you can achieve. um, then you have the message. That's not only about the verbal message, verbal communication, because whether you speak or you don't speak, messages are always transmitted, as we know. So
Mhm.
it's also about your energetic communication, your body language, your
Mhm.
everything, the way you show up as a leader, or just in
Mm.
any situation, really. It's not really only for leaders in leadership roles, okay? It can also
Mhm.
serve other people, but this framework is more geared towards those roles, because the intention behind it is to create more engaged and happier teams. And
Mm.
then the fourth puzzle piece here is trust, which again is of course related with the other 3. There's some overlaps for sure. trust is so important because it's really the glue that holds teams together and that allows creativity in teams to flow. Because if I don't trust you, then I will not share my ideas with you, and I could potentially take $1 million idea to another company if I get too frustrated
Hmm.
because I'm ignored or dismissed or whatever, right?
Wow. So, of those four, what have you seen as the hardest to integrate into the workplace?
To me, when I talk about the four elements, I don't always separate them, right? This is a
Good. Yes.
conceptualization
Yep.
because, as everything else, just as life is a holistic phenomenon, the workplace is a holistic phenomenon,
Hmm.
your career is a holistic phenomenon. And a framework is there so that we can guide ourselves, distinguish ourselves, even also as speakers and as coaches in a way, but also to put our ideas into a graphic concept that people can grasp, that people can get to know us, the way we work. But that doesn't mean that I don't customize my work with my clients, right? I take
Right.
all the different elements that they need at any given time, and that doesn't mean that I say, oh, okay, today we only speak about the mind, tomorrow we speak about the
Right.
message. No, it's all interrelated. But I think when we look at the importance of all of these and define what message really means, what communication really means, then we can make sure that all these individual elements are covered. Because some people are really great in their written communication, for example, but they feel more challenged when they speak with people, when they have to get up in front of a room and present because they feel insecure about it or whatever it is. So it's different for everybody. And I think it just all
Hmm.
needs to be addressed when there's a need.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that it's all integrated and all together. I think what I see is I hear about the need for trust more than anything, especially right now. I'm wondering if you're seeing this in your work, but so many new leaders coming in, so many people leaving. You've got this transformation going on. And so the new leaders got to get set and help build that trust. Or if there's a new team member, that person's got to get trust. And then as things change, because the business future of work is constantly evolving. So how does this how do you help with this framework when all those changes are going on?
Yeah, so first of all, we constantly need to build trust in all directions, also in the
Hmm.
interest of our own careers, because if people don't trust us, if decision makers don't trust
Yeah.
us, they will not put us into
Hmm.
a role with a lot of responsibility, right? But
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's about, first of all, sometimes we can change our language, especially as leaders. We can
Hmm.
use when it's more appropriate, and we need to learn when it's more appropriate. Sometimes it's a really good idea to use more we centric language. Like, for example, people sometimes come with situations where they say, "Oh, I find it really hard to engage this particular person in my team, and they are difficult to work with. They don't want to contribute." And I sometimes then suggest to use more we-centric language and to ask more open-ended questions. For example, we could say, what is your suggestion as how we could make this work together? Or
Hmm.
what do if you had full authority, what would be your suggestion of how to solve this problem, or how to manage this project, or whatever the situation is? I believe asking more questions is something that we
Hmm.
should always consider, rather than
Hmm.
just speaking at people and really taking them into account. And I believe that applies to most situations, really, even also when we want to position ourselves, or position our strengths, or position ourselves for a promotion, whatever it is, right? Or position a a project that we want buy-in for or want budget for. It's really about um, it's really about focusing on how can we say this in a way that it makes sense to other people.
That makes sense. And I think it's too, it's just figuring out, and I think I can tell you're a customizer as you work with each of your clients, and
Yes.
they're all different stories. So pick out one of your favorite stories to share of a transformation from one of your clients that you've seen them before you worked with them and then after. What was some experience that what was a kind of a light bulb moment for them, or an opportunity that you saw when they finally, something happened for them that helped them in that transformation?
Yeah, one of my clients, well, we worked on a promotion with her, which she got, and she hadn't gotten it the first time around. But one particular situation she was working with as well, in terms of how to increase her visibility and create more of what I call positive visibility in meetings. She was, and it sounds a little bit like a cliche, but it unfortunately does happen a lot. She was talked over a lot by one of her colleagues who sometimes stole her ideas in meetings. And with
Mm,
simple language changes, we just got those ideas back to her, and he stopped doing this. Right. And
wow.
she's a very powerful woman, but she's extremely competent. There was no doubt about that. And I was really surprised that she wouldn't have gotten that promotion in the first place, the first time around. But sometimes it's really about making yourself, as I said before, positively visible and just really, own your value. Again, it sounds
Hmm.
like a cliche, but sometimes we have to do this inner work first so that we can then own it. And when you go into a meeting and you have a few a few phrases, maybe even in your mind, or up in your sleeve, that you could say when such a situation happens, then you can just really respond to it in a very effective way and quickly. Like, for
Mm.
example, you could say to this colleague, "Oh, thank you very much for sharing my idea again. I'm glad you like it so much." There's certain phrases that we can just think of before the meeting in case those situations happen, and then we don't have to go into the defensive or even the offensive, and we don't have to be attacking people, and we can just rather elegantly navigate through those situations.
That's so interesting. So personal branding is huge right now in the marketplace because the old cliche of that your title was your brand, right? And
Mhm.
so being able to help, in this case, this female leader get to the next level by really understanding what language she was using and how she showed up. And I love that you talked about how does she increase her visibility.
Mhm.
And I think earlier in the conversation we talked about confidence and courage,
Mhm.
and how I think so many women have a challenge with that, and it's really not true. It's
Mhm.
things they're saying in their head. So I appreciate the fact that you were helping her bring out some positive visibility for herself. So
Yeah.
what are you seeing in that area of just personal branding, and as people are branding themselves within the workspace?
Yeah, so for me, it's about many different things. It's about really how you show up. So it's a lot about your leadership presence, your executive presence, business presence, whatever your preferred term is. That implies a lot of different things. It's for some
Hmm.
people, they want to dress in a certain way, but that's just the external appearance thing. I think we don't talk about energy enough. We can actually also optimize our energy, especially before challenging situations, meetings, negotiations, job interviews, review meetings, meetings where we talk about promotions or where we ask for things. And I think we always hear this statement that it takes 7 seconds to make a first impression. You probably have heard that too.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, but
Hmm.
in reality, it's actually only 0.07 seconds for our brains to figure out whether we can trust someone. So that's again about trust, but it's also about
Hmm.
presence, and it's about our energy. So, we need to remember that we continuously communicate it on an energetic level, whether we realize it or not. meaning we better prepare energetically as well, and we can do that very quickly. And that's what she did as well, by the way. She understands this because of her hobbies. I'm not going to go into more details so that it's not obvious who it is. Of course there's so many clients, but I want to be very careful about that. Is what happens is when you bring those elements together, and when you do simple exercises to prepare energetically, maybe also physically and mentally, whatever works best for you, but also whatever is might be missing right now for you, then you can show up as your most powerful, more confident self in those negotiations, team meetings, presentations, whatever it is.
Okay, is that what you call the body and energy conscious presence? Is that what
Yes.
you're kind of packaging it? Can you give our audience a tip or two on that, on energy consciousness?
Yes, first of all, I call it body and energy conscious because they, of course, belong
Hmm.
together. Uh, in the end, everything is energy. Even, your energy flows into your thoughts, into your actions, into your body language, into really everything, and even also into your words. But I also believe that if your energy contradicts your words, then your energy oftentimes wins, because your energy speaks louder than your words, and it
Hmm.
oftentimes speaks faster than your words, as we said before.
Yes.
And I believe that energy has such a significant role also in trust building. Now, to come back to your question, we can, if you feel like you can relate more to the physical concept of it, then start out by becoming fully present in your body. You could call it grounding, but fully present in your body is also feeling your body from the inside out. That alone can make a
Hmm.
difference. We know that deep belly breaths help, right?
Hmm.
That we hear all the time, and there's a physiological background to that, because your breath then activates certain nerves in your body that calm you down. Now, when you go more into the energy arena, what you can do, for example, and I just did actually a LinkedIn Live with somebody about this topic the other day. It was about getting prepared for speaking situations, but it doesn't matter,
Hmm.
what the speaking situation is, because we speak all day in business. It doesn't have to
Yes.
be speaking from a stage necessarily. So what
Good
you
point.
can, well, yeah, what you can do is just to sit with your feet, or stand with your feet firmly planted on the floor, and then feel. This is a fast version, okay? There's a
Okay.
slower version in my book, Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine. There's all sorts of different exercises and techniques in there, but this is a fast version. You can really focus on your solar plexus area, because that's where most people can most easily access their confidence in their body. Now, if you
Mm.
breathe into that area, the solar plexus stomach area, inhale deeply and exhale, and then you focus on this area, maybe by placing a hand on it or two, and then, what you focus on expands. Right? We hear that all the
Mm.
time, right, Dana? So
Hmm.
then here, if you really focus on this, I call this your inner power energy.
Mm.
And you imagine this energy filling your entire body, and even your aura, or that energy field around you. You could bring it all the way up through your heart, your throat, your all the way up through the top of your head, and in your imagination you surround yourself with this power energy. Just a few seconds of that, if you really focus on it, can make a big difference. Not only in the way you feel now, that you feel more confident. It's similar to power posing in a way that you might have
Hmm.
heard of, and a lot of people have heard of that. Um, because, of course, a posture change also changes something in our mind. It goes both ways, right? So our mind has an
Hmm.
impact on our body has an impact on our mind. Our body is actually an expression of our subconscious programming to a certain extent. So what happens is, as we imagine this, first of all, oftentimes our posture changes automatically a little bit, which is interesting.
Hmm.
And especially when we do it with our eyes closed. And then we can literally imagine this energy around us. So now that gives us more confidence, but also increases our perceived presence, how other people
Mm,
perceive us. You, we both know people probably, and our listeners know people that when they come into the room, people notice them, even though they have not said a single word.
right.
Some people have this more naturally, but not all of
Mm,
us do. So we have to sometimes use techniques to increase that perceived presence. That makes us more visible in meetings. It helps us be heard in meetings because people notice us more. And of course, the voice and everything else has an impact as well, but it also plays together. But this does too.
I love that. And I think while you were speaking and breathing, I was found myself sitting up and following that. But I think you were so right. We don't think about our body positions. We don't think about our breathing. We don't think about that energy we're bringing to the room, and it's speaking before anything comes out of your mouth. And like you said, and I think there are some great tips that you left there. Now, I saw in your bio that you were a dancer. You are a dancer. Is that right? Is that a
It's my
hobby? Is that
hobby.
a fun
Yeah,
thing?
it's not I
Okay.
didn't grow up with it, so I would not be able to move
So,
into professional dancing, but I love it. Mhm.
is it ballroom dance? What kind of dancing do you do?
So it, I've done a lot of different dances, Dana. I'm gonna make it quick, but I started with, as a little kid, I was just watching dances. I was doing a little bit of the folkloric Bavarian, which was the only thing that was available. Yeah, grew up in a village. It's not really what I love now, but it was something that I knew at the time. And then as I moved to Munich, I started doing some Latin dancing, some salsa and stuff. And then, of course, in Madrid, I did more of that. Then I started tango dancing. Then, as I was in Argentina, I translated about 10 books on tango and the Argentine culture as well. I did
Oh,
a lot of
wow.
tango there. Then I moved to Brazil. So before even in Munich, I also started samba. The samba nupe, the regular samba dancing
Hmm.
that we know from the carnival and all that. And then while I lived in Brazil, I did more the samba de gafieira, which is a partner dance, and other Brazilian partner dancing, which would fall into the category of ballroom in a way, what they call ballroom there. Um, and also a little bit of Afro-Cuban, Afro-Brazilian, da da da. And then now I'm doing really more African dancing, and also
Wow.
I love Haitian compa sometimes because I love the music. It's so happy. And then yeah, and then the Angolan partner dances, the samba, not samba in this case, but
Hmm.
samba and kizomba. And what I totally, totally love is Congolese music, Nambolo, so Ndombolo, and they have really nice rumba too, but the Ndombolo dance is something I study more actively. Yeah,
Well,
West African
I was
dance.
thinking about this when you were talking about the breathing and the energy. I
Yeah,
thought, well, that comes probably naturally to you when you're dancing. I'm guessing it just you kind of have to breathe a certain way and hold yourself a certain way depending on what you're dancing, right? It is, and but at the same time, it's making you're aware of your body, you're aware of that energy. Is that
absolutely.
correct?
It also changed my posture actually. It did change my
Yeah.
posture over time for sure. I was hunching much more when I was younger. I also it improved my body image as well.
Mm.
So I was much more self-conscious about my body in very young years, and I don't have that now. I also learned confidence through it. I learned to ask and
Mm.
sometimes get a no because I want to dance with the great dancers.
Sure.
Now I
Oh, that's
don't always wait to be asked. And then, of course, some of the dances you dance by yourself anyway, so you have to be willing and ready to express yourself,
I
even if you
love it.
didn't grow up with it. So, dance has taught me many, many, many lessons, even also leadership lessons, because
Mm.
in partner dance, we have the leader and the follower. A
Right.
leader, to be understood by the follower and to make the dance harmonious and enjoyable, has to be leading with clarity, with clear intention, and even without speaking. So there's a lot of course, body
Mm.
language involved, but also intention. energetic intention, all of that. So yes, it has certainly taught me so much about energy, about our body, but also actually about leadership and even teamwork and
Mm.
sharing space. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to share your space on a dance floor, you cannot co-create dance with others.
That is such a good point. It's so funny, Regine. I have another cohort that I work with, and we do a podcast together, Gary Crotes, and he was a former ballroom dancer, and he's also a doctor and now a coach. But and then I had another person on the show a couple of weeks ago that was a former ballroom dancer. So there's something about dancing and coaching
Yeah.
and leadership training and development. It's just pretty exciting, and I love it. I love the uniqueness, Regina, that you hold, and how you're bringing your uniqueness to help others in the workplace. As we get ready to close down, is there anything that I haven't asked you that's coming up for you that you want to make sure our listeners hear about today before we close down?
Well, it's just one thing that I sometimes like to say is always remember that no one can truly empower you but yourself. It's really
Mm,
up to you. We talk so much about women's empowerment, about this empowerment, that empowerment, but I cannot place power into another person. I can guide them to empower themselves, and that's really why it's up to us to take
mhm.
action, but also just to do that inner work sometimes and to take charge of our careers or businesses or whatever it is for everybody, and really yeah, take the steering wheel. It's not up to other people to empower you, it's up to you.
That visual I got when you were saying that was thinking about you just going on up on the stage and getting up there. You know, you don't have to wait. Just get up there and start dancing. So, and then the lessons from that for
Yeah.
leadership were incredible. So, thank you for that. If our folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to find you, Regina?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for allowing me to share that. My website is transformyourperformance.com. So, Transform Your Performance is the name of my business. On LinkedIn, I'm just on as Regina Huber with my
Okay,
name.
perfect.
I also have a LinkedIn newsletter. I'll publish again on Friday. So, every Friday, there's usually an article. It's about career relevant topics, leadership topics, and some related topics. I'd like to keep it pretty broad so I can offer a little bit for everybody. I have a YouTube channel as well,
Oh,
and
great. Okay.
my book is on Amazon. It's called Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine, and it holds it's basically a compilation of the tools that helped me in the past that I still use to this day, and that my clients use as well to prepare mentally, physically, and energetically for challenging situations in business.
I love that. I love how you brought in all the different cultures that you've got to experience and be in and learn their languages and then help in their workplaces and then learn their dances and then bring that into the leadership role. So, what a great package. So, thank you so much for sharing today. And we look forward to following you on LinkedIn and learning more about what you share each week. So, thank you so much, Regina. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thanks to everybody listening. And I look forward to meeting you in other places as well.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Dominate Your Day podcast. If you're ready to transform your life and workplace from the inside out, go to danawilliamsco.com and set up a discovery call. We would love to connect with you and equip you with some helpful resources. Thank you for listening today, and please take a moment to subscribe to Dominate Your Day wherever you listen.